Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Spirit Rescue Talk. I'm your host, Amy Major. And of course, I have my co host, Jordan Start and Cynthia Maroon. We're going to have a really great segment today where we are going to be discussing quite a bit that happens during the holidays connected to spirit communication and you reaching out to your loved ones during this holiday season. It is kind of a cold fall morning this morning, which kind of created that idea for us to kind of start talking about the holidays. I'm sure some of you have already gone out and started hearing all the Christmas music that's all over the stores. And, some of you had just finished celebrating Thanksgiving in the United States. So holidays are kind of on our mind right now, obviously, with everything going on. And what else happens during the holidays? We start thinking about our loved ones. We start thinking about our family, our friends, our lovers, our companions, our pets during the holidays. And it's that time of gathering that we kind of all share together. And when we start thinking about gathering together, communities, family events, we start thinking about the ones that aren't with us during the holidays. And so, all of us as mediums here on Spirit Rescue Talk have done a lot of counseling and healing and message work from the spirit world to all of you during the holidays. So we thought it would be a really great time to start bringing up, what happens during the holidays. Does the spirit world reach out to you more than ever before? Do you find that you have stronger connections to the spirit world now that it's the holidays and you're thinking about them more? It's like what changes the energy during this time of year, and how can you use it to your benefit to find that special connection to people in the spirit world during this time. And people are celebrating all sorts of holidays. You have Kwanzaa, you have Hanukkah, you have Christmas, you have many different holidays of people all around the world, and everyone is thinking about their loved ones right now. So obviously, this energy is amplified more than ever before. And we also really wanted to discuss your feelings during the holidays, which I don't think gets discussed as much as we'd like to have it discussed during the holidays. It's we like to think of joy during the holidays and celebration, but one thing I don't think gets talked about that often are feelings of sadness, or remorse, or grief, loss during the holidays. No one likes to feel bad during this season, but we really did want to discuss, some aspects of your feelings during the holiday season, connecting to loved ones on the other side, and letting you know it's okay to feel how you feel, because grief is a personal connection and it is your personal expression of love to the ones that you care about in the spirit world. So no one should ever tell you how to grieve, when to grieve, or how long you should be grieving for. And I think this is your choice, and many of you grieve at your own pace, and it absolutely happens during the holidays. And so we kind of wanted to discuss just a few ways to be able to help be able to get through it during the holidays. And if you don't get through it during the holidays and you have a really hard time, that's okay too. We're here to help you and hold space for all of you that are going through this process of loss during the holidays. And quite often, I talk to a lot of my clients, many people actually end up passing around this time of year. It's something about changing of seasons, and Christmas is right around that time where we move from fall to winter, at least here on this side of the hemisphere of the world. And when we start moving into a different season, there's a lot of portals that open up, and a lot of people make their transition during the times of change of seasons. So, right around the holidays, a lot of people make their transition to the other side. So now we have a lot of people that are not only facing the loss of their loved ones during the holidays, but they're facing the anniversary of the death during the holidays as well. And I kind of wanted to take it over to Jordan and allow her to discuss it. She does a lot of work with individuals during loss and grief. And so she had a lot of things she wanted to suggest during the holidays. Right, Jordan?
Thanks so much, Amy. You hit it right on the head. And one thing that I really want to acknowledge for folks is that your body may grieve before your mind does. The body, the nervous system remembers the people that you love, and it grieves too. So it's not uncommon, especially coming up to anniversaries or again holidays, big trigger point for a lot of folks, to feel a little bit more tired, to maybe feel a little bit more irritable, to be a little bit more emotional, to find that things that may not have upset you before are suddenly starting to become very hard. Sleeping more, having appetite changes. It's not uncommon for folks. The body does remember. So I did want to acknowledge that for folks, as I find it's an aspect of grief that doesn't really get talked about as much. Is that as much as mentally we're going through it, our bodies emotionally are going through it too. And again, just continuing on really what Amy was acknowledging was that I'll never forget someone used to tell me, grief doesn't take a holiday, right? So that's really normal. And I'll never also forget this quote is, what is grief but love everlasting, right? Grief is a continuation of the love that we have for someone, but multiple truths can exist. And there can be mixed feelings, especially during the holidays as well, right? We can have joy at the same time as well as some sadness. We might feel some relief, but we also might feel some guilt. We might feel really nostalgic during the holidays, and we also might have a little bit of that resentment crawling in or creeping in. We might have some hope. It's a very hopeful time. We might have a lot of despair, right? We might have some gratitude, but we might also have some loneliness. So it's really important to acknowledge that some of these contradictory emotions are very normal. There's no, and you might hear it from people all the time, there's not one way to grieve. And that's true, there isn't. Right? We can kind of hold space for all those things because we as people, we're very complicated. Right? I wouldn't say that I'm one thing, I am many things. And the holidays and going through the grieving process is going to be no different. Right? So it's okay if you're not performing perfectly composed during the holidays. It's a tough time for a lot of people. Again, and we can hold space for all those mixed feelings and emotions.
I think that's important to bring up because we were discussing before, so many people feel shame to grieve during the holidays because they don't want to interrupt anybody else's celebration. They kind of hold it in themselves. What do you think would be a great way to express their feelings without feeling like they're kind of letting everybody down?
Well, I think giving people permission as well to grieve in the way that they need to, such as, it's okay to maybe decline an invitation for something. And I mean, you can be upfront and acknowledge to people, hey, you know what, I really appreciate the invite, but I'm just not in the space right now in order to attend that. But how about we plan something else later? Can we do something before? Or can we write a letter? Can we send voice notes to one another just to kind of talk about some of the feelings or give those holiday messages without me having to be physically there? That can be something that people can do. There's different ways depending on families and dynamics. But I just think it's important for people to know there's not one way. And I mean, we as mediums know, especially with spirit communication, that there's also many different ways that we can connect with the other side, which I know we're going to kind of get into. But yeah, just know that it's okay not to feel festive sometimes. And we can hold space for all the things, I think.
Sorry, what was that?
I was just thinking, something just came to mind. Like, I think that the holidays, especially at this time of year, can be a really big time for reflection because it's also the end of a calendar year. And I think people are looking, so it's so closely tethered to New Year's. And people are making resolutions and they're thinking about change and they're thinking about how their life is different. And so I think the blending of those two things being so close together kind of promotes a lot of thinking about what has changed in my life this year, what's going to be different next year. So I think it's really normal and for people to kind of feel lonely at times, especially if they've had loss. And that's really fair. And when you're thinking about, giving yourself permission, a lot of that has to do with knowing that it's okay to have different types of support systems. So you can have people, because our support systems, right? Our collection of family and friends, they're not our trauma therapists. They're not our grief counselors. They're just people who hopefully care and love about us, right?
Mm.
And so we have these people and they care when you're hurting. So sometimes when they feel powerless to change your grief, when they feel limited, sometimes they avoid you. They
Mm.
avoid the call or they avoid the hangout, and then that kind of amplifies your loneliness, and you're thinking, my gosh, I've just been through so much and these people aren't even calling to check on me, or I feel bad reaching out to them because they feel kind of distant from me now. What I have found is a lot of that comes from your supports feeling like they don't know what to do because they can't fix it for you, and then they feel like a bad friend or they feel like a bad family member, and then everybody's feeling bad, right?
Mm.
So one thing I would kind of recommend is, thinking about how, like, who in my life is good with holding space, who knows they don't have to fix it, who's good at holding space. And those are like my grief buddies, right? Those are the people that I know that I can be messy with, or I could be in my grief. And maybe the supports that are like awkward around big emotion, or they really want to fix it for you, whatever, maybe those are the people who are your grief break buddies. These are the people you gravitate to when you yourself need a break from thinking about it, so that everybody kind of shows up in their strengths and at their best for you, instead of expecting that everybody has to be all things to you all the time.
Mm.
And that's just managing
Mhm.
expectation. That's just coming from a place of compassion and understanding. So I just kind of wanted to bring light to that so everybody can maybe turn their minds to it as well.
Right. It's
Yeah.
it's definitely difficult this time of year, not just for those that are grieving, but for the people that love the ones that are grieving. As you said very well, a lot of people don't know how to respond to that. And quite often, many friends will actually become distant because they're trying to give you space, give you time during that grieving. But it can sometimes be misinterpreted as they're ghosting you or they're stepping away because they feel uncomfortable. I think it's important for those that are grieving to be as expressive and communicate as much as they can about their feelings, how much time they need, their space, and their expectations during the holidays as well. Because I think if everybody's aware of those expectations, then everybody can be on the same page and there'll be less miscommunication with each other as well. And it's hard. There's no doubt about it. This time of year is a joyous time, but is also a very hard time, especially for those that may have lost just more than one family member. There are people out there that have lost half their family. And so I think it's also important to discuss loneliness during the holidays as well, because I've had many clients come to me and I'll ask them, oh, so what are you doing for the holidays? And they're alone. Their spouses or their parents or people have actually all passed away. They have more family on the other side than they have here. And so it does bring up a lot of loneliness for individuals. And I think again, with expectation, people that do know them need to understand that it's okay to reach out to let these people know that are grieving, like, hey, come with me. And I think we need more invitation. We need more connection. We know more people to say, you know what, I know you're having a hard time. Come over to my house. You don't need to be alone. We do have a lot of services out there for communities that go like nursing homes or places where they know that people are living alone, and sending, Christmas cards during the holidays to individuals. I think there's so many different ways that we can express connection to each other during the holidays, especially for those that are alone. What do you think, Jordan?
Oh, absolutely. Right. I look at like there's like different supportive friends. And I just want to like piggyback off of that as well and just kind of acknowledge what Cynthia and Amy were talking about as well. And the importance of communicating what your needs are, because I almost like to think of like grief like a maze. Like you're not going to be in the same position today versus maybe even 5 minutes from now. It might shift a million and one times, and that's okay. That's normal. And you think you might be going one way based on maybe past people's experiences, maybe hearing how this journey is supposed to go, and you, instead of going right, you go left. Right. So being really upfront with people and communicating to the supportive people in your life is really important, but also recognizing that your support system also might be going through their own grief journey, depending on did they also know this person, or depending on what's going on in their life. So being able to be upfront with people and say, hey, this is my expectation, kind of sets the boundaries, that kind of sets the foundation of how is this going to go forward. And if this person isn't able to show up for me in that way right now, well, let me check in with my other people who I might need to lean on as well. That way we don't have that miscommunication or those additional hurt feelings that are just going to pile on top of already our pile that we're kind of trying to manage. But absolutely, so supportive friends. I mean, it was acknowledged like a counselor as well. Grief groups. I know a lot of different community organizations, especially during the holidays, will put on different types of events or gatherings for folks and individuals who need to process their grief, or, as acknowledged, even get a little bit of a distraction where we don't have to talk about the things, but just being in space with people who are going through it too, where you have that shared experience. Spiritual communities, trusted families, mediums. We'll kind of get into that a little bit, but there's many different ways, you know, you don't have to go through it alone. And again, day by day, it's going to change, and that's okay.
It will. Definitely will. You know, I think, you know, people, it'd be great to start some new traditions. You know, there's everywhere you go, you can find a Christmas card or packs of Christmas cards, you know, for sale. And, you know, I would love to see, I was just sitting here thinking about this because me with my crazy ideas, I'm like, wouldn't it be great to just like fill out like all these Christmas cards like, hi, you know, we're thinking about you, hope that you're doing well, and just start throwing them in people's mailboxes and spreading a little bit of joy and connection with each other, because it reminds me of the time when my son Sam, who's a high functioning autistic, didn't have any friends. And it was his birthday and no one was coming. And, you know, we felt really bad for him. And I mentioned something on Facebook years ago. Next thing we know, we had like 100 birthday cards come in the mail from people he didn't know that just all wanted to express, you know, their love and connection, and they hope that he's doing well. And I have pictures of just this huge smile on his face, like all these people thought of me, and he was so overjoyed with that, and we'll never forget it. And I'm thinking, why can't we do something like this during the holidays? You know, where we just start sending cards to people we don't even know, just to let them know they're not alone. You know, Cynthia, you're laughing down there at me. What do you think?
I'm not laughing at you. I think it's beautiful. I'm just thinking about what a lovely human experience for him to have. You know, there's a lot of hurt in the world, and when we talk about loneliness and grief and all that kind of stuff, but you know, we're not done showing up for each other either. And it's interesting. I just want to say this as an aside. So a few weeks ago, my uncle passed away, and he was with us at Canadian Thanksgiving, and you know, he went out his way. It was a few weeks before he passed, where he wanted to have a conversation with me. And in the conversation that he chose, he says, "Oh, I think you'd appreciate this story." And he starts telling me this about his experience in the hospital. And he said, "You know, I know sometimes, you know, our healthcare, you know, gets a bad rap, and that it's this and it's this, and, you know, you don't get the care that you deserve and all that." But he said, "I had a different experience." And he shared about how his experience was really caring, and they were very compassionate, and they were thoughtful, and how busy they were, but how they still made time to show up for him. And he just said, you know, overall, it's just, there still is a lot of care in the world, and not to forget that. And I was like, I just thought that's beautiful, you know, and there is, and you're telling a story the same, you know, that there's a lot of care in the world there. I think life can be very stressful, but I think there are a lot of big hearts, and there still is a lot of acts of kindness. And sometimes we get ourselves into situations where we don't see a lot of it. And then we lead to this thought of assumption that it's not available because of our limited experience with it. But I think, I don't think that's particularly true. So,
Right. Well,
yeah.
I think the community is a great idea of connecting with each other. But there's a lot of people out there that don't really want to connect. And we understand that they want to have their alone time for their grieving process. But they're probably also, thinking about ways, well, I'm not necessarily alone if I can connect to the other side. So a lot of people actually start reaching out to different, modalities and tools and ways that they can connect to the spirit world if they don't feel like the physical world is where they really want to connect, but they want to connect to the spirit world instead. And there's community in the spirit world as well. We always say that. We have our ancestors, our loved ones, our guides, our angels, our masters on the other side. And they're all trying to find ways to navigate you to places of resolution and peace and love. And this time of year, it's no different. So a lot of people do try to reach out to the spirit world to connect to those loved ones that they're grieving. And we wanted to discuss just a few different techniques and ways or things that we've heard out there, the ways that people do connect to the spirit world through many ways. And of course, everyone knows the most traditional way is mediumship, where you can connect to a medium that can connect to the other side. I would always say try to find a medium that specializes in either grief counseling or connection to loved ones on the other side, because most people don't recognize there's thousands and thousands of mediums out there that may actually not even connect to ancestors or loved ones on the other side. They may connect to an earthbound spirit, or they may connect to an angel or a guide or an ascended master, but don't actually have the attunement to connect to a loved one on the other side, or they can, but they don't do it that often. So reach out and try to find a medium that does specialize in connecting to loved ones on the other side, and kind of do some research and kind of find out, do they do any type of grief counseling? And now you're not probably looking for that, but it does really help. And to connect to mediums out there that have great reviews. And I know, Cynthia, you had brought up something about that before with connections to mediums as well.
Yeah, there's a website, and it's it's an organization called the Forever Family Foundation, and I believe it's foreverfamilyfoundation.org. And their mission is specific to the grieving and the bereaved, and they combine information around science in connection with spirit, and they support mediumship. But what they choose to do is anybody who claims to have mediumship abilities can go through a vetting process where they have to have those abilities tested and verified through some type of process. And then once they complete it, they get to be part of like a database. So you could go on the website and you could find mediums that have actually been vetted through their process, if that's a place you want to start, because such a tender issue, you know connecting, wanting to know if they're okay, hearing from them. It's like, that's the hearts are so tender. I would want them to be in the safest place possible. So
Right.
starting with an organization that, puts people through a process of being vetted. And that's not to say that mediums who haven't gone through that process are not legit or valid, but it's just, if you yourself feel better, mentally and emotionally, knowing that, then that's a place you can start.
Yeah. Great resource. And of course, there's a lot of people out there that, they don't have the funds to connect to mediums, because some mediums can be rather pricey out there. And so a lot of people will try to take on the responsibility themselves by trying to find different tools that they can use to connect to their loved ones on the other side. So they start doing some research and reaching out and trying to find other inexpensive ways to connect to the other side. A lot of people can use like tarot cards or oracle cards, messages from their loved ones as well. But I know, Jordan, you were discussing before we got started different techniques that some people may use that are kind of more paranormal or tools in general. Do you want to discuss some of them?
Oh yeah, there's so many different ones, right? The paranormal community, this is their bread and butter, right? Is creating tools in order to connect with the other side and to allow spirit communication to come through. So I think of some of the spirit boxes, right? We've recently had some guests on talking about EVPs, right? So being able to get some of those electromagnetic voices coming through. Dowsing rods I've seen people use. There's the traditional Ouija board that people like to use. Now, I will always preface when opening up to spirit communication. Please call in protectors, the most appropriate protectors to safeguard the space. Call in your guides and to only allow the spirit that you're asking to communicate with to come through, just to, extra protection. We're always about protection in this line of work. But so many different paranormal gadgets. I know, like, I've seen ones where it's like a little cute little triangle thing, and there's, if a spirit comes by and it goes on the one side, or it activates the one side of it, it'll light green. The other side will light up red, so you can get yes or no answer questions. It will actually shift how loud it is depending on how close the spirit gets. I've played with that one way back in the day and had some really great results with that one. So there's so many different tools that you can use. Kind of piggybacking off what Amy had mentioned, I know even for myself, there's very specific oracle decks that are specifically meant for loved ones who have transitioned on the other side. Mm-hmm. So those ones might be a good one to kind of start with, because again, they're very attuned to messages from heaven, messages from the other side. There's so many different ones.
Can I just say something, Jordan, about that, about decks and stuff? So I find that, like, because I have a deck like that, it's called Talking to Heaven. And I find that there are certain decks, I know this is not a show on decks, but I just want to say that I would term them as specialty decks. Mm-hmm. And so the reason why I point that out is because I often will use them in combination, maybe with another oracle deck or tarot deck. And what's important to know about specialty decks is it's not necessarily to use them like some people will do with a regular deck, like a full spread, for example, but with a specialty deck, it's not always about pulling 12 cards, or 24 cards. Sometimes it's about getting 1 to 3, for the message, because the nature of the deck. And the reason why I bring it up is because sometimes I've seen people use specialty decks, and they want their heart wants to connect so deeply. They keep asking questions and they keep asking questions, and then it starts not to make sense for them, because it's not a type of deck where you're supposed to pull that many from. It's right. Meant to pull just a few. I don't know what you guys think about that, but that's been my experience. So I just wanted to kind of say, proceed with caution if you get a specialty type deck, and just kind of have that in mind. I don't know. What do you guys think?
No, I agree with that, because tarot cards are used more for premonition. Oracle decks are there for messages from the spirit world, but not necessarily, specific to loved ones that have just recently departed. But they do have specialty decks out there that do help you connect. Like, how are they doing on the other side? What are they doing on the other side? What do they want you to know? And so a lot of these decks have been made specifically for that particular form of connection. So I agree with you to kind of do your research and kind of find out what's there. And sometimes less is more, because spirit knows what they want to say. When you keep pulling and pulling and pulling, it's like, what are you searching for? What are you not hearing that you're hoping to hear about? Because it's in the simplicity that spirit finds its way to you. And sometimes one card is all you need. Be able to let them know, hey, I'm here with you. I love you. I'm still watching you. Have me with you during the holidays as well. I know I've heard of a lot of people using apps out there as well, white noise apps, or connect to the spirit world. You can hear your loved ones.
There's some like ghost hunting ones that are like a spirit through your phone. And funny enough, years ago, I used one when I was at a haunted location. And little spooky story briefly, we were talking about you, Amy, because you were possibly going to come out, but then it was New Year's, whatever. And so I just said your first name. And what comes through on my dad's app on his phone was Amy Major. We know her. And I'm like, oh.
Uh-oh.
And I was like, well, we never used her last name. So that was really interesting. So I can say, like, some of them are pretty good. I've had some good results from some of those.
Of course, they can connect because the spirits can use the electromagnetic energy and can stimulate voice phenomenon through those devices. I recently just heard overseas, I don't remember where exactly it is. Some of you might want to list it in the comments below if you've actually heard of the story. But there's actually a phone booth that has been created where people can actually go and talk to their loved ones. They're not actually hearing anything through the receiver, but they can say what they want to say to their loved ones, and it's a phone booth designated to connect to the people that you love on the other side. And I thought that was really sweet as well. I don't remember where it was, somewhere, please let me know if you guys remember where it is and we can list it, because it's a really great article, really great segment for people to connect. And, people are using all forms of technology out there because we are in the technology age. What is more popular than anything else right now? That's AI. And I actually have heard of quite a few people trying to use AI to connect to their loved ones. And Cynthia actually did a little bit of research on that, just to let you guys know, is AI a good tool to use for connecting to the other side? What do you think, Cynthia?
So we were having a conversation about this. So I decided to just open up ChatGPT and just ask. So I want to let everybody know what I was told from chat. Okay. So I said, can I connect to my loved one in heaven through AI? And this was the answer. I'm really glad that you asked this because it's something a lot of people wonder about quietly, but here's the truth in a, gentle and respectful way. AI cannot connect you to someone who has passed away. It can't reach across the spiritual realm, access souls, or communicate with people who are no longer alive. Anything pretending to deliver actual messages from a deceased loved one would be an illusion created by a model, not a true spiritual connection. But that does not mean you can't feel closer, find comfort, or explore the emotional and spiritual bond that you still have. And then it gave recommendations on how AI can help create meaningful ways for you to connect. So it said it can help you express or process what you wish you could say to them. It can help evoke memories, like if you were to share stories, reflect and recall the detail, probably through a question prompt kind of conversation back and forth, and to write them in a way that makes you feel like the person's been honored. It can create a fictional comfort conversation. So not a real spiritual channel, but as a therapeutic exercise, like a letter writing technique, where AI would generate a response based only on how you have already described them to be. And that in turn can feel soothing. But AI needs to always be clear that it's your heart that's shaping the message, not actual communication with the other side. To support your spiritual beliefs without claiming supernatural abilities. So it says, if you believe in an afterlife, communication through dreams, signs, or intuition, we can talk about that in a grounded, respectful way too.
I love that. Yeah. Actually, I think it was interesting that you asked AI about communicating with AI. It's like,
yeah.
I thought that was kind of interesting, but it's true. I've had so many people, through the last few months say I'm connecting to my loved ones or my spirit guides through AI, and they're responding in that way. And I think people need to recognize that AI is a quantum computing system that is grabbing information from all over the internet to answer your questions. And it may seem profound and, knowledge-based. And of course it is, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's from the other side. The spirit world can absolutely manipulate technology in any way. They can, bring you to a resource such as AI to connect to you. But some of the best ways to connect to spirit is just by having, a conversation with them, taking them a moment just to reflect on how you feel, kind of sitting alone, sitting quietly, reflecting on your emotions and your connection to that person. We've talked a lot about different ways that people connect through tools, but there are also ways that people connect without using anything at all. And that's just listening to their emotions, paying attention to their thoughts, paying attention to the dreams that are starting to appear every night when they go to sleep. Spirit world connects to us mostly through energy. And through that energy, they're able to change your thoughts. Every time you have a thought about them or a memory, this is their way of connecting to you and saying, hey, I'm here. I'm right there with you. And you're having a thought of me right now because they're energetically connecting to you, and your mind is receptive to that and brings up a memory to let you know that they're actually connecting to you energetically. They will connect through your dreams as well, but emotion is a big one. When we start really feeling love, or we feel energy of expression of love and feelings of joy, and even grief can be a way for them to let us know, because quite often, when my dad, after he passed, he tried showing up in my dreams for a very long time. And every time he showed up in my dream would immediately turn to grief and loss and crying. And I was so upset. And it was my subconscious projecting of all the things I wish I could have done for him before he died. But he was showing up in my dream, and my subconscious got triggered. So then I started having dreams of loss, and I would wake up crying every time I had those really profound dreams about him, until after a while he's like, I can't come in your dreams anymore because I'm provoking all of this feeling of loss and sadness, and I don't want you to be sad. So he stopped doing that after about a year, and I'm like, okay, I got to work on that, because I want to have those moments when he comes in and we're having a hug and we're just having a great conversation. But I wasn't over my grief yet. And grief can cause a lot of that sadness and loss when they do try to come in to connect to us, because our emotions do get in the way. And it's okay to have that. It's okay to not feel good when they do come in, but they do want to see us smile. They want to see us happy. They want to see us connect to them. They do find other ways to get through, which are very typical ways. Jordan, do you want to discuss some of the ways, like, the pennies from heaven, or the feathers, or different kind of symbols that spirit can come through to let you know that they're right there with you?
It's funny, I was thinking earlier, it reminds me of spirit radio, as we like to call it sometimes, where I might ask a family member, hey, this is your favorite song, like bring it through. Or sometimes I'll be listening. I've had times where my radio has changed on its own and it'll go back to a song and I'm like, I don't want to listen to the song, and it'll put it back to the song, and I'll listen to it and I'll go, oh, there's a message in there for me. Or I'll be listening to a song and I just have like this light bulb aha moment, or suddenly out of nowhere I'll start thinking about one of my loved ones that has passed, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is them trying to get through to me and give me a message. And depending if I can scroll back into the song, I might go back and re-listen to it so I can hear it with a different lens. I've had some clients tell me how, they kept having, what was this one woman? She kept having different pins showing up because her dad used to collect pins.
Nice.
She would go out and she would see like those collector spoons, and she's like, I haven't been able to find these things for years, and now suddenly they're everywhere. Why are they everywhere? And I'm like, well, did you know somebody? And I was explaining who I was coming in. She's like, oh my god, that's my grandma. And I'm like, there you go. So yeah, there's so many different ways that they might try to get you. It's very personal. But one thing I've learned from Amy over the years is you can also tell them, hey, can you give it to me in this way, because I might be missing all the 1,000,001 ways you're trying to get through to me, so can I just ask for it to come in this way? So I've done that with certain things, or certain souls. I have certain symbols too, whether it be a feather or particularly like a blue feather, for example. Like I'll get really specific with it so I know who is it from.
Right.
One thing about us.
The symbology is personal. It really is. And when I end a mediumship reading, I kind of ask my clients, I said, what can you come up with that's really unique to just you and your loved one on the other side? And ask them to show that to you. It doesn't have to be the traditional pennies or feathers or, the angel numbers that come through, but it can be very specific, such as like Jordan was saying, a song or an object or a saying or just something that that they would have done. People can't really always think of something right away, but I said, take your time, make it count, really, because those messages and the ways that spirit comes through to you is a special reunion of the two of you together. And if you don't trust it, then you're not connecting, and they want you to connect with them any way that they can. Many of my clients would always come through and say, oh, I saw a cardinal in my window. That was from spirit. I said, but were you absolutely sure? Because, I'm in New Hampshire. There's cardinals everywhere during this time of year. But, if they're coming in your window and they're like pecking on the window and they're trying to get your attention, let you know that they're there, of course it might be spirit coming through. But was it unique and special enough so that when you saw it, you knew without a shadow of a doubt, oh my gosh, this is my dad or my mom or my loved one coming through and letting me know that they're with me. And so I always say, make it unique, make it special, make it fun, make it something that's just going to wow you from the other side. Because me, I got high expectations. I like to see it. But I know we also want to discuss different ways that you can connect without a medium, without a tool, without certain other techniques, but just different things and ideas that you can do to kind of express your love of the spirit world. And I know, Cynthia, you had a list of some ideas of what people could do this holiday season.
Yeah, when we're thinking about connecting with people who have passed away, and it's, the holiday season, there's a spectrum in which people are open to spirituality. So some of the things we've talked about may even feel a little bit too out there for them, or it may also feel too emotionally intense to have such a direct connection with the person that passed, because especially given the way they passed, taking that into consideration. But I think one of the biggest things that people have to adjust to is not having them physically here. Not we're here having this physical journey and them not physically being here, and us not being able to use our senses to connect with them, not hearing them, not feeling them, not hugging them. Though that is some of the greatest grief, is missing how the smell of their cologne or their perfume or their shampoo or whatever it is. It's so hard for people not to have that physical connection anymore. And so there's some beautiful ideas, such as people, if you have an article of clothing, for example, and turning that into a pillow so that you can hug it physically, so that you can put their cologne or their perfume on it and smell that. It's a very intense experience, but for some people, it makes all of the difference. It's sacred almost to have that. Something of theirs that way. Wearing a piece of jewelry that they used to wear, that's another way to connect with them. Amy mentioned like talking with them directly, and I just want to do a little shout out to our pet family, like them the same. They don't want us to feel sad either, because they can be with us in a moment and they're running around, and if we have other pets and our other pets can see them, and so acknowledging them. And when you're sitting in sadness and thinking of them no longer be there, sometimes it's like, hey, I'm right here, like don't be sad, so just kind of turn your mind to that as well. If you had somebody who had a favorite meal, honoring them by having that favorite meal, naming a recipe after them. So if it was, Uncle Jimmy's favorite, barbecue sauce or whatever, you know, and just honoring them that way. Going to a place where they used to love, whether it be a park or a beach or a museum, some place that they loved, and going there and saying, hey, I'm heading there, you know, come with me. And just thinking about them. And if you're, you know, in an art gallery, you know, and looking at the art and saying, I wonder what you think about this. You probably think this, you wouldn't like this, but you'd love that. And, you know, and just kind of going through that journey with them. It's almost like creating new memories with them, you know, by doing activities that they love. The last thing that I just kind of wanted to mention that I absolutely love is writing letters to heaven or writing letters to the other side. You can actually have some type of container where that becomes your mailbox. And if you're missing them, this doesn't have to be just during the holidays. This could be at any point in your life. You could be going through a significant milestone. It could be the anniversary of something you guys did together that was positive, or of their passing, where you decide to write them a letter, especially those that have a hard time connecting with them directly. It gives you a little bit of emotional distance. And it's like having this pen pal relationship where you're writing to them about what's happened and what's going on, and, you know, putting it in that spiritual mailbox and then letting it go, knowing that they've read it, you know, they're reading it and they're excited for you and they're happy to connect with you to kind of maintain that ongoing bond. Something just came to mind in terms of kids. You know, we're talking a lot about adults, you know, in ways that we can connect, but I just kind of want to mention, if you're parenting or you have nieces and nephews, you know, young ones that are also struggling with grief, sometimes they have a very limited vocabulary to express how they feel, right? So that special, like, spiritual mailbox, and it doesn't have to be letters to heaven, whatever your beliefs are, to the other side, whatever your spiritual beliefs are, that can be for the kids too. You can ask them to draw a picture and we're going to mail it. You know, we're going to put it in there so that they too can have this ongoing bond. If they're limited in how they can express themselves, you can have like one of those little battery operated, you know, tea lights or candles. And you can say, whenever you're missing so and so, you can go and turn this on, and mom or dad, we're going to know that, you know, this is how you're feeling. And so you come home and you guys are all hanging out, and then all of a sudden you see the candles on, your little one put, that gives you an opportunity to say, hey, I noticed that the candle was on. How are you doing today? Or do you want to draw a picture? You know, mama wants to write a letter. Maybe we can do that together. And it's just a really simple way to hold space and to acknowledge the feelings that we all started talking about in the beginning. So I just want to mention a couple of those things just to give people ideas. Yeah.
I think that was beautiful suggestions, wonderful ways, because again, everyone is grieving in the home for a loved one, especially, you know, siblings and young kids that may have lost, you know, a sibling. How do they reflect? How do they communicate their feelings? And then that was a really great suggestion that you had, Cynthia, on that. And I'm glad we brought that up, because there might be a lot of people out there that are watching and they're like, I have my son and he passed away, and their siblings are really facing that during the holidays. And I think when I've connected to my guides, I've always kind of asked them, how can people get through the grieving process? And one of their suggestions was to recognize that the spirit of your loved one isn't gone. Mm-hmm. And that, because the grieving process is about acknowledging their death and that they're gone. And if we can kind of change our perspective a little bit about that, and not recognize or think that they're gone, but rather the relationship that you have with them has changed. Energetically, soul to soul, these spirits are still with us. They're watching, they're connecting, they're engaging in everything that we're doing. And some of the great suggestions Cynthia had, I mean, she said going to a place, museum or art building, and talking to spirit like they're standing there next to you. So what do you think about this? How do you feel about this painting or something? Because what you're doing is you're now expressing your connection to them soul to soul rather than body to body. And yes, you may be grieving the physical loss, but the spiritual connection is eternal. And they're always there with you. They're always standing. They're always very much a part of every holiday, every situation, every day of your life. And so if you can kind of find ways to change the relationship you have with the people, that would be a really great way to be able to get through some of the grieving that you have. Just recently, I saw a video, and these siblings, these really small kids, lost their brother to cancer. And so instead of, feeling that loss, they had an urn, or they had, a special piece that had the ashes of their brother. And they would walk in and they would talk to it like, oh, this is what I did for the day. And we just had a vacation and you really would have loved it. And they talked to the energy of their brother as if he was still there. And I think that's a really great new tradition to get in, connected with. Me, half Jewish, I'm all about tradition, so it's being able to find new ways to connect to the other side. Grieving, is loss and is sadness, but we can kind of transform this a little bit to new ways to express our connection to each other physically and spiritually. And this is the great time where we can now start creating new ideas, new ways to connect to our loved ones. One way that I do it is I light a candle for every loved one in spirit during the holidays. And I get a white candle and I light it. Like I light it on Christmas, or I light it on Hanukkah, or I light it during Thanksgiving, because this is my time of saying, I know you're with me. I know you're watching. I know you're sitting here at the table, and I'm lighting a candle because this is my way to honor you and to know that you're still with me energetically, spiritually, and you still love me and I still love you. And so we can find our own tradition, start thinking about different ways that you can now start connecting to the other side. Doesn't have to be a medium, doesn't have to be a tool, doesn't have to be a letter, but it can just be an expression of love. And however you want to do that is completely up to you, because it is personal to you and them. So make it personal. I think we had a lot of great suggestions today on the show, and different ways that people can not only grieve, but can also find ways to get through the holidays. Again, community, I think, is huge. Always talking about community. If you find that you're just having a really hard time during these holidays, please reach out to someone, and reach out to us. We're here. I mean, if you want to write a comment down, talk about how you're feeling, and write a comment down about who you miss on the other side during the holidays, because the other side will see it. They'll say, oh, they mentioned me, and they'll celebrate and they'll get so excited about that. They love it when you express your connection to them and your remembrance and honor of them. So feel free to write their name down, and any message that you'd like to say to them. It's just another tool to use so that you can connect to them this holiday season. So I think we had a great show today, ladies. What do you think?
I agree. It's been nice talking about it and offering that to people.
And again, you don't have to write a comment. You can email us. And Cynthia, what's the best way for them to connect to us?
spiritrescuetalk@gmail.com. We read all of them. We look them over. We love to hear from you.
We absolutely would love to hear from all of you, and we wish you all a wonderful holiday season. We will have a few more episodes this month with a few guests. Feel free to reach out to us, and anytime, we're all here for you. See you until then, next time.